Hello and welcome to episode 10 of the Unorthodox Vegan. My name is Sean Gold. Today we're going to be making a Spanish paella. Yes, we are. It's a little bit of a challenge to make the Spanish paella properly, but that's what we're going to try to do today. Now, in the previous episodes, just to do a quick recap, I had episode 1 was what is an unorthodox vegan, and we also made a spinach wrap. Episode 2, I made some of the ingredients that are used in that spinach wrap. We made mayonnaise and chipotle and a chipotle mix. In episode 3, we focused on foraging, shopping, and also used some of the local apples that we foraged and made an applesauce. Episode 4, we made that chickpea-based hummus, very easy and simple to make. Episode 5, we roasted some eggplant and made a baba ganoush, which is another wonderful appetizer. In episode 6, we made two types of rice, a regular white rice and a brown rice, but the brown rice made a little bit differently, so it was nice, chewier and meatier. And also made a curry dish in that same episode. In episode 7, we made banana ice cream. Now, those were foraged bananas that were going overripe and were going to be gotten rid of by my local market. So I didn't have to go far to get those. Episode 8, we made pancakes. Episode 9, barbecue sauce. And today we're making a paella. Are you ready? The ingredients we need today are all down here in front of me. We have 4 cups of a vegetable broth. I have some rice, a cup and a half of rice. I have about a cup and a half of sliced red peppers and green peppers. I have some tomatoes, diced tomatoes. I also have some onions, some garlic, and I have for the topping something special. It doesn't not called for in this recipe, but I wanted to use it, which is a seitan, which is a wheat-based meat product, vegan meat product. I'm going to use that for a topping, part of the topping. I also have the spices. I have a sweet and a smoked paprika, which I use to add extra flavor, some extra virgin olive oil for cooking, some sea salt, and some pepper for flavoring, thyme, and saffron. A little expensive, but I found my saffron. It was hidden somewhere. That's all we need for today's recipe. Stay tuned. We'll be moving over to the stove so we can get ready and start cooking. Welcome to my stovetop. I have the 4 cups of vegetable broth already starting in the pot, just warming up. And that vegetable broth I made with a powdered mix. I could have used some leftover vegetables that I was using somewhere else, but I didn't have any. I just eat all my vegetables and didn't have anything available other than to cook them up. And frankly, for that purpose, I don't see the point. Anyway, we're going to be adding 1 teaspoon of saffron. It says to break it up. Saffron is very expensive, so I'm just going to follow the recipe as close as I can, so don't waste too much of it. It adds a wonderful flavor, just a little bit of added flavor and some beautiful color. So I'll be adding that in there, mixing this around. When I get it to a simmer, I'm just going to get it so it just starts to simmer, and I'll let it simmer for about a minute. I have it on a medium-high heat. And when it simmers, after it simmers for about a minute, we're moving on to the next step. I'll lower the heat and just keep it warm, and then we'll be working on what goes into the main pan. The vegetable broth has heated up. Let it simmer for a minute. Now I've turned it down to a low heat now. I've got the oil in the big pan going. It's about 2 tablespoons of oil. And to that, I'm going to be adding in some onion, 1 medium onion. I'm going to let that one, it's on a medium heat. I'm going to let this soften and brown a little bit. And I'll be adding in those peppers. I'm going to give it a little bit of color later. We'll let that heat up. Saute that for about 3 to 5 minutes. Just let it get a little bit of golden color to it and soften up a little bit. Okay, this is browned nicely. I'm now going to add in the garlic, the minced garlic. Now there's 5 cloves of garlic. It's a lot of garlic. I love garlic. So this is heaven for me. I'm going to be adding in that garlic. Let that saute around for about a minute. And I'm also going to be adding in some paprika. Now I'm going to be adding in 1 teaspoon of the smoked paprika. It's going to give it a nice flavor, a nice smoky flavor. And I'll be adding in a half teaspoon of the sweet paprika. We'll get that in there. that, and I'll get that mixed around a little bit. And I'm going to be also putting in the tomatoes, which is about a cup of tomatoes, diced tomatoes. And I don't have any fresh thyme. I have just dried thyme. So I'll be putting in the dried thyme. And the dried thyme I'll be putting in about, how much am I putting in there? About 1 teaspoon of the dried thyme. So give me this. See if I can get that in here. There you go. Put one of that. Get this thing all mixed around for about a minute. All right, now time's the exciting part. So I've got the all this is nicely sauteed and warming up and doing all of its thing. I'm going to be adding in the rice now. 1.5 cups of rice, white rice. Just they recommend different types of rices at specific types, but you know what? I just use regular white rice, and I'll be adding in a tablespoon of olive oil. About a tablespoon of olive oil. Extra virgin olive oil, and then stirring that around, making sure the rice gets coated with as much of that oil as possible. And now this is, when I do that brown rice, I talk about just coating that, putting in a little bit of oil in a pan and putting in the rice directly. And part of this is the reason for doing that. It just gives it a nice nutty flavor to it. So it really can be a wonderful experience. It's not for everyone, and it's not for every meal type. Depends on what you're cooking, but okay, I've got that mixed in there. I've added in the rice. I've got a little bit of oil. I'm going to put in, now let that get a little bit toasted right now. Just toast it up a little bit on the pan, the heavy bottom pan. They recommend a cast iron paella pan, but I don't have one of those. And frankly, I've had this work on this pan, which is a non-stick. They don't use non-stick, but that also, it doesn't work for me. So this one worked for me. I'm going to be adding in the broth in just a moment. I just want to make sure I've not missed anything. I think that's good. Oh, I love that smell. Okay, now I'm going to be pouring in the broth slowly. Get all that saffron in there. Turn that stove off over there. Okay, now I've poured in the broth. I'm going to add a little bit of salt and pepper, a little bit of sea salt, and this is just a flavor, whatever amount that you think is right for you. Adding in some sea salt. I have some fresh ground pepper. By the way, I love this grinder. This is an amazing grinder. It works so cool. It broke down after about the first few months of using it, but I was able to repair it. Haven't seen it since then, but it was just amazing. So put in that. And let's see, you got the brown pepper, you got salt, pepper, and the next thing is I'm going to put in this seitan, which I mentioned I was going to put that in. It's going to go in on top, kind of as a topping. So I'm just going to put some slices of that in. After I do this, I'm not going to touch this at all. I'm just going to let it sit and simmer and boil off that liquid. And this is an important part of the process. We're going to let this thing turn into I'll come back to you later because it's going to take a few minutes, but I'm going to be cooking off the liquid. I have this sitting now at a fairly heavy simmering I'm going to have it for 1 to 2 minutes or so, and then let that just bring all of the flavors together. Get this out of the way. No more stirring. In order to do this right, I'm going to actually end up having to, as it's cooking a little later, I'm going to be rotating the pan, just make sure I get an even heat. It's nice to have a solid base, a heavy base pan, because it heats up evenly, or tries to heat it up evenly. I will also, now I'm going to turn down the heat right now because it's been up there for long enough. Turn it down to a lower heat, not quite low, but fairly low. You want to have a mild simmering. I'll let that cook for 20 minutes. It says 15 to 20, so we're going to put it in at 15, and then we'll come back and watch that. Now, this is when it gets really dicey, and this is what I really want to point out. When the water boils off, the liquid boils off, that's when it gets you have to be very, very careful. Because what we want to do is we want to have this thing called a saccharat, which is when the rice itself starts to go, like the Rice Krispies, snap, crackle, and pop. It will actually start to snap, crackle, and pop if we do it right. We don't want to burn it, so we have to be really, really careful. But when it does that snap, crackle, and pop, it kind of caramelizes this thing called saccharat, and it has so much flavor. It gives this stickiness to it, but it's really an amazing flavor that's going to come through with the starches that are right there in the rice. So I have to be very careful about that. And I'll be coming back to you and talking about that as this boils off most of that liquid or simmers off most of that liquid. And we get it down to the point where you have to be really careful. And hopefully we'll get that snap, crackle, and pop, and you'll be able to hear it. If that works out, it'll be amazing. And the food will be amazing. It doesn't matter if it doesn't, but don't burn it. The big thing is don't burn the rice. So that's why I'm being careful about the temperature, and I'll be watching this. They said in about 15 minutes, I'll come back, take a look, and it probably needs another few more minutes to boil off the liquid, but I'll check that and I'll let you know. All right, now I've been letting this cook for a little while. It has boiled off all of the liquid. It's all simmered off. I have been listening closely to it to see if I can hear that snap, crackle, and pop. And I've been checking the bottom to see if there's any of that saccharat forming. And I can feel in the bottom there that there's some happening in various places. So it's not quite on the outer sides, but there is in the middle part and around some spots. I've tried to do a little bit of a rotation of the pan, get a little more. And you can hear a little bit of that crackling and popping. I'm not sure if I'm going to get it with the regular white rice that I buy. Just listen close and see if you can hear. Meanwhile, we can hear that or I can feel just by feeling it that that caramel or that saccharat has formed on the bottom. Again, it's not touching the bottom; it's going right through and hitting that saccharat. In some places, I can hear it's hitting the bottom of the pan. That's unfortunate, but in the middle, it's definitely formed that saccharat, and it's giving me that nice caramelized or kind of a caramelized texture to it, and it's going to be delicious. So let me just take this off the heat for now. Let it cool down just a little bit, and we'll taste it, see how it goes. Back in a minute. All right, it's time for the big reveal. Did we get that saccharat forming? Oh, I can feel it. There's something good stuff happening in there. I'm going to take just a little bit of this out. And you can see that there's, I don't know, hopefully you can see it. You may be able to see it. There's a little bit of the golden brown on the rice that was on the bottom there. Oh, there's a nice chunk of it. There you can see it, that golden brown part there. That's that saccharat that has been forming. And we're just going to taste that right now and just see how this whole thing tastes. Wow, that is delicious. Oh, that is so nice, and the texture is just beautiful. That when it gets that saccharat, it just becomes just absolutely gorgeous and just wonderful flavor, full in. And that's without that seitan flavoring. This is just the paprika coming through, and the various other spices, the thyme, the paprika, the onions, and the garlic coming through there. And it's just beautiful. I'm going to be serving this up for dinner tonight, and it is beautiful. So there you go. This is episode 10 of the Unorthodox Vegan. Thank you for joining me again. If you have any questions or comments, please send them to my email showing up on the screen. And always, please follow me on the Unorthodox Vegan on YouTube. And you can just go The Unorthodox Vegan, look it up. I'm there. If you have any questions or comments, please send them my way. For now, my name is Sean Gold. Have a lovely day.